Okay, looks like we're live, everybody. Well, I mean, nobody. If you're here, show up in the chat so that I can respond to any questions that you have. Uh, I'll type that in the chat right now. If you have any questions, please ask. This is kind of a live recording. I think I'm going to do an edited version, but what we're doing is we're going from, we had a, well, first of all, this is Justin from the Sonic Reels channel. I had a comment from a subscriber, or at least a commenter, and the commenter says, please post the diagram or pics how you put the pedals together, all the way from the amp to your guitar. Will be very helpful. Thanks. That was in my Boss DD8 and Hot Tones Soul Press 2 expression pedal video. So what I'm going to do today is go over, you see my little X here. I hope you can see this little dot here. This little dot with the kind of crossed out sign. This is going to be my pointer. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is, this is probably more than what the viewer was asking for. They were just asking for me to explain this Hot Tone Soul Press and this Boss DD8 and how they work, how they're wired up to my amp. I'll go over that in the very end because this video is going to be about the entire pedal board. And this is a massive rig rundown, as the title says. But hopefully somebody will learn something about pedal order. And there's no right or wrong on pedal order, but this is how I have my setup here. So I'm going to go through first the pedals, what they are, and then I'm going to go through and tell you I'll go over a little bit what they do, and then I'll tell you the pedal orders. I have all these layers here that I'm going to kind of fade the background out here like that, and then show you, okay, one layer at a time, what they all do, you know. So I'll start with mono. I'll start with mono. So it's going to look like that. That's my mono chain, right? So you could take everything out and this would still work. But then I'm going to go over adding each layer, you know, show you one at a time, or we'll see how it goes. But first of all, I'm going to show this where you can see what every pedal is, and I'm going to tell you what every pedal is and kind of go over what they do so that we can get a broad overview before we get started. So Hot Tone Soul Press 2, that's what this is. It's a 3-in-1 expression, volume, and wah pedal. This is the Boss SY200. That's a synthesizer pedal. It has some MIDI controls, stuff you can integrate with the RC10 over here. The next one is the Walrus Audio Julia Chorus. It's a modulated chorus pedal. This is a Walrus Audio Monument. It's a stereo. It's not a stereo. It's the mono version. Not the new Monumental, but the Monument. It's a harmonic tremolo, and it has all kinds of features. This is an ARP87 delay, also by Walrus Audio. And that's all the Walrus Audio pedals I have on this board. Next, we go on to the New X Atlantic, reverb and delay. We have a reverb side and a delay side, and they are stereo. Stereo. So I have a delay here, it's mono, and then this is stereo delay and reverb. And you can switch the order of reverb into delay or delay into reverb. This is a Boss SL2 slicer pedal. Okay, it slices up your signal into rhythmic patterns that also can be synced with MIDI tempo. This is the Boss RC10R. It's a looper and rhythm pedal, so it has drum sounds in it, and then you can also you can synchronize loops over the drum pedals, and then you'll have your own little backing track. Mine is bass, which I'll get into another video. I have another one of these on a bass board that's connected to the bass as well, but just for these purposes, it's just guitar and then drum tracks. This is a power amp. It's a Moore Baby Bomb 30 power amp. It goes out to one of my wet, dry, wet speakers or cabinets. Okay, let's try to go this row here. Let's see. This is a Legato loop station. It's just a simple looper. This is a Sonic Cake Wave Crush, and it crushes the waves. What I like about it is it has a radio sound that degrades the sound. It also has a bit, like video game sounding stuff, like low bit, 8-bit. Next is the Sonic Cake Octaver. It's an Octaver pedal. Okay. Can do octave up and octave down simultaneously. This is the Astral Destiny reverb pedal by Earthquaker Devices. It's a modulated reverb. There's a lot of presets. This is just a noise gate here. I'll explain how they all fit in later, but this is one noise gate. And it's the, what is that? Moore? No, Donner noise gate, I believe. Let me go check. No, it is not Donner. It is the Rowan noise gate. I couldn't read it on my screen here. This is an M-Valve IR box. You can load IRs onto it. It also has its own IRs that came with it. That's impulse response cabinets you can load onto this pedal. This is a preamp pedal, and it is a Moore 002 preamp. Okay, this is another preamp. This is a tube preamp. So this one is analog. Okay, this one, it's a mini analog, but it's analog, not digital. This one is LeClean, 2 notes, audio engineering, LeClean. This is a tube preamp pedal, okay, and it has features we'll go over later. This is a Soph gate by Donner. It's another noise gate, but it sits somewhere else in the chain. It has an effects loop that we'll go over as well. This is another IR cabinet loader pedal. It's the Impulse Response by TC Electronics, or TC Electronic. This is the Digital Delay DD8 by Boss, the Boss DD8 Digital Delay. This is the Boss RV6 Reverb. There are many delays and many reverbs on here, and these two are also stereo. The Slicer is stereo, the RC10R is stereo. The Atlantic is stereo. These are mono, this is mono, 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 mono. The first stereo we get to in this line are going to be these two stereo. And this is another stereo pedal. It's a Joyo Vision dual modulation pedal. It also has the A, B, or B into A, so you can reverse the order or put them in series or parallel. So one feeds into the other. You can do it reverse, or they run in series with two modulation effects running at the same time that don't affect each other. This is a Mosky Audio Pure Buffer. This is a Mach 100 by Carvin Mach 100 power amplifier. This one down here that I mentioned is 30 watts, while this one is 100 watts. And you can run 50 watts per channel on an 8 ohm cabs or PA speakers. This is the Joyo 10-band controller. It's an EQ pedal. It has 10 bands of EQ and a master volume. This is a distortion pedal. It's the Boss DS1, probably one of the most common Boss distortion pedals. This is I'd say this is an overdrive, actually. It could be considered overdrive or distortion. It has 2 different modes on it, germanium or what is that other one called? Silicone. So it has either germanium or silicone chips inside. You can switch them on and off, and it's an overdrive. It works best with single coil guitars, and it gives you like a distortion that kind of sounds like a little bit like a broken speaker, just a little bit. It's just a really beautiful distortion, especially probably my favorite distortion pedal for ambient type music. This is the, let's go ahead and go on to the Tone City Model M. This is kind of like a Marshall JCM 800 in a pedal. Okay. It sounds a lot like the new, when I look at the videos on YouTube, this one sounds a lot like the new Marshall pedal that's supposed to sound like the JCM 800. I thought about getting the new one from Marshall, but it doesn't fit perfectly on my board like this one does. And also, it sounds just the same to me on YouTube. So I've never had a JCM 800, but it sounds like the classic Marshall sound to me. This is a pitch shifter here, a Moore Audio pitch box. It will shift the pitch. It will do detune and something else. What was it? Pitch, detune. Oh, okay. Pitch, detune, and harmony. You can pick one out of those three, and they'll go up and down octaves and do different pitches. So if you're playing an E and you want to just drop it down to drop it down a whole step, you can by switching this knob here. See, the Infinite Sustainer by TC Electronic. This one is like a drone pedal. Okay, you play a note, you hit the stomp switch, and it drones on with that one continuous sound. And you can add modulation via the app, or it has an effects loop, so you can also add your own modulation that only affects the drone sound. This is another TC Electronic. This is called the Crescendo, excuse me. And what it does is when you turn up the attack and sensitivity right, it'll let you come in the sound slowly, kind of like doing a volume swell. All right, it's basically like a volume swell pedal, but it's automatic. Sometimes I use this hot tone soul press for the volume swells, and sometimes I use the Crescendo because it's more dynamic. You can get regular attack sounds at the same time as doing the, well, you can watch another video on that, but it is like a volume swell pedal, okay? It's just dynamic. This is the Distortion from Pigtronics. That is a really cool distortion pedal that has all kinds of different levels of distortion and different types built into it. That's also, so the stereo stopped over here at the Joyo Vision. All these on the top are mono, okay? The final pedal is the Pigtronics Gold, Philosopher's Gold, and this is my compression. Now I'm going to go over the order of everything and how they work. So if there's anybody in the chat, I'm going to switch over and check. Nope, nobody has any questions. I don't know if anybody's even viewing this, and that's fine. But if you have a question, please ask. I'll go ahead and post that now. I forgot to. There we go. Now I'm going to fade out this screen and just show this. Now I'm going to show this, okay? Now you can see my pointer a little bit better. It's just Photoshop. I'm just using this as the pointer, which is no tool selected. And I'll be able to go through these. First, I'm going to go through one at a time. So I've got mono here. I'll go next to stereo. Then I'll go to this. And then I'll show you the what each path is, how it's set up, and how they all integrate together with each other. So we have several layers. We have mono, stereo. We have the noise gate effects loop and how it loops into the preamp. And that is where all my overdrives and EQ that go into that. And we'll go over it again more later, but we also have through output here, signal chain. This is my dry signal. Well, dry for now. I'm going to make it into a wet, 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 but right now it's wet, dry, wet. This is the SY200, and it has its own effects loop. This is the MIDI configuration, just for keeping everything in sync that has MIDI. And this is auxiliary. It goes from the, well, I'll go through it later, but that's the auxiliary path. So let's start with mono. All right, so I have my guitar down here, and it's plugged directly into the Hot Tone Soul Press 2. All right. When I do when I do videos, I'll play it into this looper next a lot of times. And that way I can demo the different sounds on the pedal with the exact same loop. So this is just a basic looper. It has like 9 loops. Now, so we go from guitar to hot tone soul press 2, the volume and expression pedal. Let me start over again. Guitar goes into the hot tone soul press 2. That is a volume, expression, and wah pedal. All at the same time. Well, 3 in 1. So you can use it for volume or wah, one at a time. And it also has an expression output jack, which I use to control this DD8. We'll get more into that at the end, if I remember. And so volume, wah, and expression. So volume or wah. And at the same time, you can do expression with the volume or the wah. So that goes into my looper. I explained that I do a little loop and then I test out the pedals with their different sounds so that you can compare them without any different attacks on my picking or anything like that. It just shows you basically what the pedals do. So simple looper there. Now that goes into this Sonic Cake Wave Crush. That is what I already described before. I guess I don't have to go over the descriptions too much anymore, but here's my mono path, all right? The Sonic Wave Crush, I wanted that before my compressor because I don't want to compress the sound of the audio before it goes into the Wave Crush. And that is because of the way the Wave Crush handles the sounds. If you compressed it beforehand, it wouldn't be as dynamic. And I really wanted this to be before the compressor, because once you turn this compressor on, so we're here in the chain now, when you turn that compressor on, it equals out the volume and attack on the strings throughout the entire chain. So that affects the whole chain. I didn't want that to be affected, to affect the Wave Crush. So that Wave Crush goes before the compressor pedal. Then the compressor pedal goes into the Sonic Cake Octaver. That one, I don't mind if it's after the compressor. And this compressor is not always on. A lot of times I just turn it off if I want more dynamics. I mainly use the compressor if I'm going to have a single coil and I'm playing with just a single coil and a simple overdrive or distortion. Well, really just with the overdrive, not with distortion pedals. Distortion pedals already had a lot of compression. So this gives me kind of a sweet spot. Or I just play with the compression directly into the preamp. And that way I have a nice, even, when I want less dynamics and focusing on different things, okay? I can't get too much into the compression and how that works right now. It's not very complicated. It just kind of equals out the volume. But it does affect, like when you hit the strings harder, that affects these other things like the preamp in different ways. So it helps you level things out, makes it easier to play, especially with single coil. I only use it with the single coil for some reason. Guitars, like my Telecaster or the Strat as well. So that goes into a Sonic Cake Octaver. This Octaver, like I said, octave up, octave down, that goes into this in of the SY200. This has in and out, and it also has effects, send and return, which we'll get into later. But so far we have expression pedal to looper, looper to Wave Crush, which is into the compressor, compressor to octaver, octaver to synthesizer, synthesizer up into the swell, volume swell into the pitch box into this noise gate. And then that noise gate is actually, I'll have to turn that on to show what I'm talking about. So let's go with noise gate effects loop. It's integrated with this preamp and all my overdrive pedals, okay? So I can show it separately. And you see how it doesn't really make any sense until you show it with my mono setup. All right, so we'll go right back to that in just a second. I'm going to turn off the effects loop for now, and we'll go into, we're just doing in and out. All right. So, well, this goes in, and then we're going to basically skip over to this Clean. All right. The Clean preamp that goes into this IR box, right? The IR box is the impulse response cabinet simulator. And what I do is I put my reverb and modulation and delays all after my my cab simulator, because I like how it gives it how it affects the cabinet sound overall. It seems like some people put this cabinet simulator at the very end of the chain. I like it before my modulation, reverbs, delays. All right, so then it goes straight into this reverb. Most people put delay and reverb at the end. Well, it's most common at the end after modulation over here. But I have an early reverb because I like how this reverb for ambient sounds goes into this modulation. All right, and these are just the two modulation pedals that I have on the board right now. But so let's back up to this preamp to, okay, where are we at? All right, so the modulation, the reverb rather, starts going into modulation over here. That reverb sound is modulated if it's on, and that like makes it more ambient. It lets the chorus and this harmonic tremolo reverberate the actual reverb. Affect the actual reverberated sound from this reverb. You can turn it off or on, obviously. So when it's off, you're starting with modulation, and then you can add the reverb later down the chain, starting here with the Atlantic. So reverb to chorus. This chorus pedal to the harmonic tremolo to the mono delay. Now that's where the mono signal ends. However, I marked these as M for mono or left channel, and you'll see how that integrates later. But basically this feeds into here. This delay feeds into here, and then you get the stereo signal. It turns into stereo from there. Okay, we'll stick with the mono, and I'll just explain the pedal order first, and then we'll go to stereo, and then we'll show the effects loops. All right. So we're here. The NUX Atlantic delay and reverb. See, that can go after this delay, and you have dual delay. It can also reverberate it immediately, and then you could just use that. This is my favorite for really spreading out the sound once I do go stereo. But for mono purposes, you can use it as just a delay and reverb at the end of this very small modulation chain. Okay. And it also works really well with all these pre-effects like the octaver and the wave crush and the pitch box. So this delay pedal into this delay and reverb pedal. So after that, I have the slicer pedal. The reason the slicer is after delay and reverb, which usually I do want delay and reverb, I want it before and after. That's why it's set up like this. So the slicer pedal chops it all up, goes into this modulation pedal, this modulation into a delay into reverb. Then it goes into the looper here at the end of the chain. The end of the chain looper loops everything that has effects, all the effects. It loops the guitar with all the effects at the end, so I can do my little backing tracks. This looper in the beginning is just a dry signal looped. The only thing going before that is this volume, wah, and expression pedal, so that I can replay those loops and then start playing with pedals and see how they sound. This is for the overall sound. I loop that to come up with my backing tracks, and I want that final sound in the loop when I do that. That goes out to Notice it's not integrated with this power amp. It goes out to this stereo power amp, the Carvin Mach 100. And then that goes out to the left, in this case, just the left speaker for my speaker cabinets, which I'm currently using. Or it goes into, I'm using a PA system right now, just some old Radio Shack 8-inch PA speakers that are unpowered, and it powers them perfectly. So when I turn on stereo over here, you see I get a stereo signal out of my speakers, the PA speakers. All right, so we've got the stereo integrated in here now. There's no point in really showing that. I'll show it real quick just so you can see the stereo chain. Okay, so that's the only stereo stuff in the chain. All this other stuff is mono. So stereo starts here with the Atlantic and moves on through in that order. All right, and now I'll add the mono back in, and you can see how it's mono up to this point, and then stereo. And this doesn't count the overdrives yet, okay? But mono, all this into a stereo signal. So you see, I have stereo here, right? And this is all mono. So if I want some of these modulate, and the modulation is before and after the stereo. So I can run this modulation in stereo, or I can have just the modulation back here and just do that and split the signal into stereo from there and just go into this delay and reverb and skip the modulation here or integrate it, whatever. But I really like how this Atlantic delay, even more so than the RV6 up here, the Boss RV6, I really like how this new X Atlantic spreads out that signal from the mono to a stereo signal. It really just completely spreads it out and gives it a very wide stereo field, even wider than this this reverb up here. Okay. So for example, when I have this early reverb, and then even if I skip these, I have reverb going into this reverb, and it makes this Astral Destiny reverb sound like it's stereo, even though it's just a mono reverb. But this has some wild sounds that I really like to run through this Atlantic. So this stereo signal goes from the Atlantic to the slicer to the Vision, and then delay and reverb basically at the end of the stereo chain, as these are stereo delay and reverb. Okay. And then those run into my stereo looper. This is a stereo looper, and the rhythm is mono, but the stereo part comes into where you can hook up stereo pedals to it, and it retains that stereo sound when you do your loops. So I'll usually do some stereo stuff and then switch back to mono for the lead. Well, a lot of times I do anyway. So then the RC10R in stereo goes out to the Carvin, and then that's the power amp. So the preamp is driving all your overdrive sounds, overdriven sounds, and then all the stereo stuff goes out to a stereo PA system, monitors, your DAW via the interface that you use for your computer, or into a cabinet. It does power a 4x12 cabinet very well. I use a Line 6 4x12 cab from the Line 6 Spider line. It's like a Spider 2 or something. The Spider 2, I just modified it to be a speaker cabinet only. I skipped that completely. All the preamp stuff from the Spider cab basically gets skipped. From the Spider amp gets skipped. So I can either have it in 2x12 or 4x12 coming out from this Carvin power amp. All right, this is a digital power amp, I guess, or analog. I guess analog power amp. But that basically powers these speakers, whatever's in there, whether it's a cabinet. Now, if I want to use this with a DAW, I cannot plug these left and right outputs into my interface, because that interface is expecting only a line or auxiliary output. So luckily I have an auxiliary. I'll turn that on. I did forget to mark one thing on it, but auxiliary goes from not only this pre-buffer, but from the right and mono channel, the left and right channels from here, goes into there and out. But this also has an auxiliary, that's the auxiliary input here, but it also has auxiliary output over here. I forgot to mark that. It goes out. I could even paint it in real quick, but it might screw everything up, so I'm not even going to try. Nope, I'm not even going to try. This has another auxiliary output that goes to my either a recorder, like I have a little portable recorder that records in stereo, or it can go out to headphones, or it can go out to my PC via my interface, which is also stereo. So that lets me record right into my DAW. And that is how I do my recording. You can actually use them simultaneously. So I'll have the inputs over here going out to both the auxiliary output that I didn't mark here and the left and right power outs that I have here that go to the unpowered speakers. So I can monitor through the unpowered speakers and record it through that auxiliary out at the same time. Or I can plug in the headphones, but then I can't record at the same time. You see what I'm saying? All right, so there's the mono and stereo, and you're probably maybe wondering why this distortion here, distortion and overdrive stuff does not go into, and the EQ does not go any, you don't see that in the chain anywhere. Well, let's add that. So I'll add, let me go look for it here. We're going to have to add this noise gate effects loop, okay? Now this is very complicated because I want this noise gate. It has the ability to place the noise gate before the preamp and overdrive and all that, and after at the same time. So when you're playing hard metal stuff, if I'm using a different distortion pedal than this, like I have a Joyo, I can't remember the name of it right now, the red one. It's like a heavy metal, you know, like when I'm using that pedal, or even when I have really high gain set on this mixed with the gain on this preamp, it starts squealing, or, you know, the noise just overpowers everything. So this will detect, let's see, I'm going to just show you just the mono. There we go. So this noise gate will detect the signal coming in from the guitar, because the guitar is plugged into the input. All right, from here. So it's goes from guitar through all this crap into the input here. So this noise gate detects the signal before you even start having any distortion or anything. Okay, and that lets it be a lot smarter and cleaner as a heavy overdrive noise gate. Because when you're trying to do like the, you know, what do they call it? I don't know, the kind of music chugging, you know, that it really cuts off that sound in the middle. So that's my best impression of a chugging. But without it, you don't get a real silent sound in between that chug. Okay. So what it does is the guitar goes into there, detects the signal, has this effects loop here. Okay, then it goes out into the return of this preamp. And this is how you have to have it set up for it to work the way I was just describing, all right? Guitar goes into this input. So just imagine you're skipping all this stuff here. You can just go straight into the input with your guitar, all right? Your output is going to go into the return of your amplifier. Now this can be this preamp, or it can be like an amplifier that is just hooked up to cabinets, like your standard amp, you know? So this is kind of like a standard amp without the cabinets, all right? So this preamp has the return and send effects loop, which is mono. So guitar to input here, and then output goes to the effects loop of your amplifier. So into the return of your amplifier. The send from your amplifier goes back into the noise gate, into the return outlet or jack. All right. The send from the noise gate, the send jack goes into your distortion. All right. So we have send to distortion, right? And then overdrive, distortion. EQ I place after my distortion because I want to affect the sound of these overdrive pedals before they hit the input of my preamp over here, which takes us back in the loop. You see, input and then final output from the preamp goes to the IR cabs. Okay, and then back onto the modulation and then the power cab. All right. So let's see what's the next thing to add. I'm sure it's confusing. I can't answer any questions because I don't know if I have any viewers. I don't see that part. Let me check. Looks like if I just go to my channel here, that I can't tell if anybody's watching or not, as a matter of fact. Let's see. Okay, I have 5 comments and 35 views. All right. Well, if you are watching, please leave a comment, say, hey, what's up? It says I got 5 or 6 viewers here. So why don't you guys leave a comment and tell me what you think about this rig rundown. Let me know what you have questions about, especially. That'll really help this video go along. I'm trying to get 250 subscribers, folks, and I'm just doing this on my off time. So, all right, anyway, what we're going to get into next is wet, dry, wet, and how I have that set up, all right? So right now, this is just really a wet stereo signal, right? Let's turn the stereo back on. Boom. Okay. I will show you real quick. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Take off the noise gate, take off the stereo, show just the mono, turn off the auxiliary. Okay, so I want to show you the effects loop for the SY200 down here. It's my synthesizer. That lets you blend a wet, dry signal as far as dry from the guitar. And you can mix this distortion in separately from it, okay? All right, so you turn on the effects loop for the SY200, and that just goes, I just have one distortion pedal. That's the only thing this distortion pedal does is mix with this synthesizer. So, okay, 6 people still viewing, 7. All right, well, cool. Okay, let me switch back to the comments and see. Nope, no comments yet. All right, so I've got the effects loop of this distortion pedal. I mean, the SY200. See, that distortion only affects that SY200, okay? Let me turn that back off and we'll go back to what we were doing here. So turn off the effects loop, we'll turn on stereo. And you know what? I'll turn off the stereo, leave the mono. I'm going to get into the dry signal. Okay, so I have my wet, dry, wet, right? So that means it's a stereo wet signal with all the stereo stuff in there. That's wet, right? I also have a dry signal, which is just this purple stuff. All right. I mean, this purple lines here. This is a dry signal. That's why I have this extra. And I did forget a line here too. Nope, no, I didn't. Yes, well, let's see. Okay, I see. Here's how it goes. All right. So we have through output on my preamp here. That lets me send a dry signal to here. Now, anything back here before I get to my input on the preamp. So if I go to my noise gate, turn that back on. So this, remember, this noise gate goes into the preamp. All right, so that's all part of the dry signal. So the dry signal, anything before here is included in that. So it's not really dry, but it's dry as far as there's no modulation, no delay, no reverb, anything like that. All right. That goes dry output into the infinite sustainer. So that lets me get a drone going if I want it or skip it. And I just get this dry signal. The dry signal, I like having this infinite sustainer in here in the dry signal, because when I'm creating the, when I'm playing over that, it's kind of like playing over a loop. I just want all this stuff later to be, my actual live signal to be modulated and delayed and reverbed. So I have dry signal out to that for that specific purpose. So if we skip that, we go to another preamp here. This is a preamp that acts a lot like this clean. This has its own built-in distortion. So does this. More of an overdrive on this one because it's a clean platform. This has clean and dirty. You can flip that tiny switch on there and you'll get another Marshall 800 sound out of it. So if I'm running this Model M up here and I have a lot of delays and reverbs on it and I still want a clean sound in a dry signal, that goes out to the dry output. So that either goes from this, okay, we just have one noise gate in this signal and it's after my overdrives on here and it's after my distortion or overdrives on the preamp. Well, mainly either clean. I can even run it clean. So I'll have like distorted sound up here just with this, and this will still remain clean. Or I can have a distortion pedal up here turned on. That distortion will still affect this dry signal because it's just because of that effects loop on the noise gate. So that's built in before the preamp. So anything before the preamp goes out. So when I just want a wet, dry, wet signal, I have all the stereo stuff turned on and I have the noise gate in there. So I've got my distortion and all that. None of this craziness from the modulation goes into the dry signal. So I have all my overdrives. I still get an effect on this. So I usually leave this pedal clean. This is clean and it that leaves my overdrive and distortion and EQ to really affect how this pedal sounds and affect how this pedal sounds. So I can get two different tones. I get a wet tone from this one and the dry, unmodulated, no delay sound from this one. And of course, like I said, the noise gate is after all the overdrives and distortions. In this case, there's only one. It's a simple noise gate and it works pretty well unless I'm doing the chugging stuff. And then this gets overpowered, you know, and a lot of noise. Okay, so from that noise gate, let's turn off some of the stuff so we can see what's going on. There we go. So out of this noise gate, go straight into another IR pedal, right? This is the dry IR sound. So it has its own cab. That cab can either run out into my powered cabinet for monitoring, or it has auxiliary out, which lets me run into this buffer. And the buffer can run into auxiliary in on the Carvin. So on the Carvin, I can have wet, dry with the stereo sound coming from here. And then my dry signal only goes out to the auxiliary in. So I maintain my overdriven sound without getting it too muddy. All right. With all that crazy ambient sound, the modulation delays and all that. So let's throw in the noise gate. Let's throw in that effects level. What does that leave? MIDI down here. Okay. So let's hide everything and then just show the MIDI for now. Oops. Okay, MIDI. MIDI is all controlled by this one. This is MIDI in here. All right. I have MIDI out from another RC10R on another pedal board sometimes because you can link two of them up and it'll keep them in sync. That's how I get a bass sound over here and it still gets recorded out of my final output here. So I have MIDI in from MIDI out. Now without the bass board connected, this controls the SY200 and the Slicer 2. All it does is control the sync. This has a lot of arpeggiated patterns built into it. And this is kind of like arpeggiated patterns too with the slicer. So whatever output tempo I have set from here, say it's 120 BPM coming from here, which is determined by the rhythm section of the drums, that MIDI out goes to here and they're synced with the arpeggiated sounds on the synthesizer. And whether you and this has a MIDI throughput. So MIDI in to MIDI out. This is set to MIDI through. So it goes from here, 120 BPM. That tells this to go 120 BPM. And that tells this to go at 120 BPM. If you don't have them synced, It's just playing it by ear. You don't have to, but I really enjoy the fact that they are synced up together because these are the only two arpeggiated and, sliced sounds that I have that really need to incorporate any MIDI. Right now, as the pedal board sits, that's as far as MIDI goes. So let's add everything back in. And this is what you get. This L equals M here, that just means left equals mono. So when you see M, that's the left channel. So you have red for our stereo. Okay, the B is for AB on the Boss pedals. All right, S equals B equals R. Red, right, return. For the red, right, return. Always remember that ditty for which side is going to be your right channel on stereo. And then on Boss pedals, the B is going to be your right channel. Okay, not the A. A is for mono, which I have marked M over here. I should have marked those A, as a matter of fact, but anyway. So let's see, is that everything? Yep, that's the entire pedal board. There's still no questions. Let's see if there's anybody still watching. We have 3 people still holding on to watch. Come on, throw a like in there and throw a hello, Justin. Good video, blah, 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 or what a horrible, crappy video. You should just turn it off right now. Somebody let me know some kind of feedback in the comments if you don't mind. I mean, I'm doing this live. I'm going to upload a more clear version that's recorded and edited, maybe just outtakes of this. But that is my pedal board. So 5 concurrent viewers. Nobody has anything to say. That's cool. If you want to be quiet and just hopefully you learned something from this. I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream here pretty soon. Let's just go over one more little overview. Let me go back to Photoshop and show the 1 layers at a time. Okay, here's the board. Here's where you're going to be able to see my overlays. There's the mono signal. All right. Here's the stereo signal. Here's the noise gate with the overdrives and EQ. Here's the through output for my dry signal. Remember, the dry signal is just these pedals right here. Okay. And then the SY200 loop, right? The MIDI and the auxiliary. And remember, I forgot to put auxiliary out up here on where it says phones. There's auxiliary out that lets me run that straight into my DAW. Well, straight into the interface that runs into my DAW. And let's just throw them all up there one at a time. Mono. Then you add in the stereo chain. That noise gate for all your overdrives. Through output, there's your dry signal. Oh, let's throw in something in that effects loop of the SY200. Now we got some distortion mixing in equal instead of just distorting the sound from the SY200. And then the MIDI to go ahead and sync up these time-based ones that are controlled by MIDI. I wish I could do MIDI out and then have MIDI in on all these delays. That would be great, but they don't have it. None of my delays have MIDI capability. And then the auxiliary, and don't forget the auxiliary out that I didn't draw. So that's it. I guess I'll end the stream, and I'm going to go ahead and let everybody check out the recording when I do the edited version. So cool. 54 views, 2 minutes duration, and 4 viewers. Thanks for you 4 viewers who stuck around. Hey, thank you very much. I don't know if it's the same people that started. I guess probably not, because I've been going for quite a while here, and we only got an average of 1 minute 58 seconds of people watching. But if you're I'm guessing there's some hardcore, at least maybe is there one hardcore person that saw this video from beginning to end or from earlier to now? All right, I'm going to go ahead and keep the live version of this last 49 minutes of talking. I'm going to go ahead and post the live version soon after this ends, and then I will do the edited version. All right, so if you want to go back and look at what we've been going over the last hour almost, then you can do that. And if you want to wait until I do the edited version, it might be more helpful for you. So, take care, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this massive pedal board rundown. And maybe when I do another version, I'll show you what every pedal does one at a time. But I think they each kind of deserve their own video, honestly. But I will show a live version, maybe. I'll show a live version of how I use them live. But for this video, it was just to answer that viewer's post about my signal chain. So there's the signal chain. So thank you very much. And that's it. We're done. Take care.